Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld Podcast, your weekly source for all the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussions. And this week, we are continuing our deep dive into the Mandalorian and Grogu, discussing the visuals. We're going to talk about the visual feast that we all saw in theaters a couple of months ago. We're going to talk about how they made some of those effects, talk about the different techniques, talk about some of the new things we saw. We're going to get into that in depth tonight. We're also going to break down some of the breaking news out of San Diego Comic-Con, an event I am desperately sad not to be at this year, especially given one of the things that was just announced. And we'll answer some of your questions in another iconic, beloved, terrific edition of Ask the SWU. First, though, introductions are in order in case you're new to the show or you've forgotten who we are. That can happen. My name is Dominic Jones, and with me, as always, it's the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? It's good to be here, and it's good to be here on San Diego. I would say San Diego Comic-Con Eve, but no, it's we're well into this, and it's happening, and it's still exciting. Yes, we want to be there. Yes, it's really there. Yes, do we hate everyone that's there right now because we're jealous of them? Absolutely, but it's still very exciting. Con season is exciting, and SDCC is upon us. And yeah, so we've already got some reveals, like within the last 30 minutes, hour, like some very exciting stuff that we're going to get into. So I'm very excited about all of that.
Yeah, knowing that I wasn't going, I'd sort of like built up a little wall around myself to know, to sort of be like, yeah, to not know anything about what was going on at Comic-Con, because like I missed going, and I went for about 10 years and I really, really enjoyed it, and I do miss going. And I'd almost forgotten that it was actually this weekend. I had almost gotten to that point where I'd forgotten. I got a message this morning from our friend Corey, who just said, "Oh, misses having you here at Comic-Con." I'm like, yeah, I miss being there too. Also, it started, but now that we've had like a full day, you know, it's good to see everybody out there having fun. That's ultimately what it's all about. But we're going to start with a piece of breaking news, and it actually relates to something that we talked about on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about, there was this panel that was all about the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. George wasn't going to be there, but Matt Senreich and Seth Green were going to be on that panel. And we were joking, like, what could happen at this panel? And I said, they're going to announce that they're going to have a theater at the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art where they show all the episodes of Star Wars Detours that never got released. To be clear, I was joking. I thought I was saying something ridiculous that was never going to happen. Well, that panel just wrapped up in Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con, and lo and behold, Seth Green and Matt Senreich have announced that Star Wars Detours, select episodes of Star Wars Detours, will be screened exclusively at the Lucas Museum. So,
man,
it's happening.
What a
it's
time!
real.
What a time to be alive.
I was joking. I thought this was never going to happen. You guys have heard me promote. I have researched and written and rehearsed and presented. I've spent so many hours working on this panel called Star Wars The Untold Stories, a great chunk of which is about detours. I'm going to have to take that part out now. I'm going to have to come up with a whole bunch of new stuff because detours is going to be shown at Lucas Museum. I'm genuinely so excited. And like, let me tell you how excited I am that this is happening. I have put a self-imposed no-fly zone over the United States of America right now.
Understand.
I've made it the decision to not visit that country until a certain somebody is no longer in power. And that's why I didn't go to Comic-Con last year. It's why I'm not going to Comic-Con this year. It's why I didn't go to D23. It's why I'm not going to Rebel ScumCon. That's why I'm probably not going to Star Wars Celebration. This is the first thing that has me thinking, oh, maybe I need to break that. Maybe this is worth it. Maybe going and seeing episodes.
You're already doubting.
Star
You're already
Wars
doubting.
Detours.
You're still stuck to your guns, and then this is the thing. This is
Yeah.
the thing that's gonna get you off of it.
I'm like, how serious am I about my values? How serious am I? Is detours enough? Once again, I am joking. Not about detours being released, but that I genuinely can't believe it. Like, Ben, this is something we have speculated about, we've talked about, we've wondered about for over 10 years. And now it is actually happening. Like, what was your reaction when you saw this?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like we just talked about it. Like, rarely, like, obviously we say a lot of stuff. We say a lot of stuff specifically on this podcast. It's not out of the realm of possibilities that we might bullseye something every once in a while, because we just say a bunch of stuff all the time. So it's not things that we might be right about something, but to happen to such a degree, and to like be like, oh yeah, we just talked about this, and we were just talking specifically about like screening episodes of the show, and now here it is. I mean, we called it because, you know, it was like, oh yeah, Seth Green and Matthew Steinreich are going to be on this panel. What could they be talking about? Why are they on this panel? Well, now we know. You know, obviously, like, there's a lot of good insight. I actually want to go back and watch the panel if I can, and like get their takes on different things, because they talked about their working relationship with George, developing detours, all this kind of stuff that's very, very fascinating. And they didn't have to do this, but now I love that George is like, yeah, no, this is happening, guys. Detours, you try to hide it. Now exclusive home of Star Wars Detours is the Lucasfilm Museum.
What was that like negotiation like between George and Disney? Was there like an actual negotiation, or did George just go, "Can I have that?" And they went, "Sure, we weren't going to do anything with it anyway, so yeah, you take it. You take it. We don't want it." Yeah, just to underscore how much I thought like that this was not real, that this was not something that was actually within the realm of possibility. When Ben put up our social media graphic promoting that show from 2 weeks ago, in the little like in the caption and the breakdown of what's on in the episode, you wrote, "Is an official release for Star Wars Detours finally on the horizon?" And I nearly messaged you to be like, "Dude, that's clickbaiting. We were just joking about that. That's not." No. It turns out it was right. It was fucking right. We were right. Who can believe it? I certainly didn't. Detours is the correct way to say it. So yeah, I'm sure there will be more details. I imagine, in everything that George has said about this museum, it does sound like they are treating, there's a couple of movie theaters in there, and they're treating them kind of like galleries. So I wonder if there's an opportunity to sort of walk in and out. I don't imagine it will be like, here's the Detours theater where they just run episodes constantly. It's probably like some episodes of Detours interspersed with some other films that are being shown there. I know Rick McCallum has said that he's worked with George on some documentaries that are going to be featured at the museum. So I expect there will be lots of filmic content and filmic exhibits to be enjoyed while you are at the museum, and Detours will be a piece of that. Maybe not the main piece, or maybe the main piece, you never know. But it's going to be exciting, and I do look forward to one day going to the Lucas Museum, walking into a theater, sitting down, and watching an episode of Star Wars Detours. as I have wanted to do since August 2012.
It's been a long time coming, and I'm just picturing like talking about a potential negotiation. Like I'm like thinking, it's just like that Parks and Rec meme where it's just like, Disney's like, well, you can't do this, whatever. And George is just like handing them a piece of paper that says, I can do what I want. And I made this thing and I can play it in my museum if I darn well please. And I love this. I love that he worked on this. George obviously liked it. He wouldn't have signed off on it, and he didn't. And like, I'm sure there's a certain amount of pride that Seth Green and Matthew Senreich have in this project. Yes, it's weird. Yes, it's a little batshit. It's just crazy. But like ultimately, like we want to see this thing, good or bad. Like, let us see what they did.
That's always been the thing is why not just release this? Why not let us see it? Why not decide? And look, online, especially when the Detours trailer first came out, there was a lot of, it was towards the tail end of the prequel hate era. And the default for a lot of people was to hate on it and say it was cringe and say it wasn't funny and all that stuff. Again, and I think I said this 2 weeks ago, this is not a highly scientific poll. This is maybe not a representative slice of the population. But in those panels, when I have screened part of the Detours trailer for people who have not seen it before, it always gets laughs. It always, like, people are always reacting positively to it. Again, that's a room of 150 Star Wars fans at a convention of 50,000 people. So maybe, again, not necessarily representative of the entire population, but there is an audience for it. And I think that audience is very likely the people that will be visiting the Lucas Museum. And again, they have said, George and Melody Hobson and the people that are the curators for that museum have said, it's not a Star Wars museum, but we understand that Star Wars is what's going to get a lot of people through the door. So they know that they are, with something like this, they are playing to the audience that is going to come. This is just another reason for people like us and everybody listening to this show to be excited about this museum, to go because we want to watch Detours. We want to see the life-size N1 Starfighter and props from the movies and Ralph McQuarrie artwork. And then their hope is that we will having seen all of that, we'll wander into the next gallery and see all of this other great art that George has collected over the years.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, this is, regardless of what you may think about it, regardless of like the quality of Detours, it is ultimately like, this is something that this is one of the last things George Lucas created as the head of Lucasfilm and the creator of Star Wars. That's a big deal. And I think, and I'm a big proponent. I'm just like, I don't care how bad you think something is. I think something is worth a second or third look. And this is going to be fascinating, like truly fascinating to watch these episodes and see where this all goes. Good or bad, I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating thing. I'm sure it's going to be funny. I'm sure it's going to be downright hilarious. Maybe a few jokes of the jokes will be a little old, a little stale, being that this is many years old. But I think there's very, very creative people and very funny people that made this. So let's take a look and let the Lucas Museum be this place for stuff like this.
Yeah, I remember one of the clips they showed at Celebration. This one wasn't released like officially, but you could find where a pretty good version where somebody had filmed the screen. Was one of the Stormtrooper characters. I think it was Donald Faison, the Donald Faison Stormtrooper. Might have been Breckenmeyer. It's one of them. Was talking about how his dream was to be a mattress salesman, and there was this extended like music video of him singing Salesman Dream to the tune of Katy Perry's Teenage Dream. So
oh my god,
I don't know what that has to do with Star Wars except the fact that it's a stormtrooper. So but it was a funny, cute song, and I think that sort of thing could even appeal to the people that the rare person that walks into the Lucas Museum who has the opposite experience of what the most of us. Most of us are going in for the Star Wars and then enjoying the other stuff. Who might go in for the other stuff and then also enjoy the Star Wars. There might still be some crossover appeal there. And you know, that song, I don't know, maybe this is me showing my age, but I think that song has had staying power. People still seem to like Katy Perry. Justin Trudeau certainly likes Katy Perry. So as a Canadian, I feel obliged to also like her.
Yeah, I think you're kind of stuck there. But like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be. There's a lot of stuff going on here that I'm like, and there's a lot of clips or stuff that I've forgotten that I've researched on YouTube and be like, oh, that's in there. Oh, that's in there. That person's in there. This character's in there. You know, there's a lot of stuff in there. And, you know, it's not all just original trilogy stuff. Like, there's a ton of prequel stuff. There's Clone Wars references. Like, you know, it's almost a love letter to the first 6 movies in the Clone Wars in a robot chicken package.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the Mandalorian and Grogu, and who is everyone's favorite character in the Mandalorian and Grogu? Rada the Hutt, obviously.
Yeah.
Rada, you're going to get a very different vision of Rada in Star Wars Detours, because
this blows my mind.
He was going to appear on the show as like a rebellious, snot-nosed teenager who had, you can see him very briefly in one shot in the trailer, who had like a punk rock mohawk and hated it if anybody called him stinky. So this was going to be like part of the show. Like they were truly building off of all elements of the Star Wars saga that existed in 2010, 2011, 2012, which is a pretty great thing. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I can't wait to see it. As I said, I've been waiting for this since I was sitting in the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida in August 2012, watching the super secret Star Wars panel. That's what they called it, in which Seth Green, Matt Senreich, and Todd Grimes and a bunch of the other creatives on that show introduced us to Star Wars Detours for the first time. Little did we know for a long time it would be the only time. But they were previewing the Lucas Museum all the way back in 2012. They just didn't know it yet.
Okay, so now, Dom, I have to ask.
Okay.
Now that you've understood your power, you have a gift. You have your magic lamp, if you will, that is this podcast. You can just speak things into existence as if you were God.
Yes.
What is the next thing? What hath you brought to us? Next.
Sticking with this same theme. Much like I predicted there would be a theater where you could go and watch Star Wars Detours, there will be a library in the Lucas Museum where you can go and read all 50 scripts for Star Wars Underworld, the live action TV series that George Lucas and Rick McCallum were developing around the same time as Detours. They were developing with people like Ronald D. Moore and Chris Chibnall and people like that. And they worked on all this stuff.
Can't say it's not possible.
There's tons and tons of concept art that was developed for that series, and you can find little bits and pieces of it hidden away here and there. There's one in the Solo Star Wars Story Art of book that is from the Underworld development. Like they're hidden away little bits and pieces everywhere. So yeah, I mean, that's not going to happen. That's never going to happen, but this wasn't going to happen either. I was joking 2 weeks ago, and I am joking again
impossible.
Now. There we go. So Star Wars Detours in some format, in some way, will be, or some amount of it will be available at the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art when it opens. When is it opening? Is it opening this year or is it opening next year? Do we know that for sure?
I think
it's this year.
I think it is this year too. I think it's September 20 something.
Yeah. So it's soon. It is very, very, very soon. People will be able to see more of Detours than just the clips from Celebration 2012, the trailer online and that one episode that leaked online in 2020. So you can be able to see more than just that very, very soon. So we'll talk a little bit more about some more Comic-Con stuff in a minute. We'll get into the Mando of it all as well. But first, I want to remind you of a couple of things. As always, make sure you are subscribed to the Star Wars Underworld on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. That way you will never miss an episode of this show. And if you subscribe on YouTube, you get a couple of other shows as well. If you're listening live and you want to ensure that your question is answered during Ask the SWU, you can super chat with us. I see we've already got one in for this week, so stay tuned to find out what that question is. But if you're not listening live and you still want to support us, you can become a channel member. That's kind of a regular recurring contribution. As we always say, we're very upfront about this. You don't get anything for it. We're not one of those cool shows that does stuff for its audience. But we do. It is greatly appreciated. It helps us keep the lights on and helps us keep the show free for everybody else. And also, if you're listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review, please do that. It helps people find the show, and you can keep the conversation going and submit your questions between shows for Ask the SWU on our Discord. So join the Star Wars Underworld Network Discord. There's game nights, there's movie nights, there's all sorts of fun stuff happening over there. And make sure you check out the other programming on the Star Wars Underworld Network, including the Raeside, Ion Cannon, the Tractor Beam, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, and more. All right, let's stick with Comic-Con. We've got a few other announcements that came out of Comic-Con. Tomorrow, as we record this Friday, so today, as most of you are listening to this, there is the panel for Star Wars Zero Company, the video game. And in advance of the panel, in advance of the preview, they announced the cast of the series. Here is who is playing who. We have Jonathan Freeman as the male version of the character Hawks, Erica Luttrell as the female version of Hawks, D. Bradley Baker is back as the clone trooper Trick, aka CT-3301. Vic Michaelis, very funny comedian, is playing Runa Blask. Rekha Sharma is playing Kundry Fathom. Alex McKenna is playing Cly Culervo. Jason Spizik is playing Luco Bronk. Leo Howard is playing Brennick Halloran. DC Douglas is playing the droid M3VO or Mevo. Judy Alice Lee is playing Jay Mordaunt. JB Blank is playing Cab Uppercut. Badass name. Nicole Ranto is playing the Jedi Tel Ray Voss. Jim Peary is playing Nish Renak. Dylan Kynan is playing Visor. Hunter Smith is playing Typhon, and some guy named Matt Lanter is playing some guy named Anakin Skywalker. I think that's our first confirmation that Anakin is in the game, which is pretty exciting.
He was at the tail end of one of the previous trailers, I believe. But we didn't hear him speak, and also people were like, Anakin looks really weird here. Which he kind of does, but I'm sure the voice will help.
Yes, I think having D. Baker and Matt Lanter back again, this kind of cements this game as a quasi spiritual sequel to the Clone Wars series. We've talked before, like, I don't understand what this game is. I'm not enough of a gamer to know. Like, I'll read these articles about it where it tells you like this is the type of gameplay, and I'm like, that might as well be in another language. I don't know what that means. But then we'll get these little story details about it where we find out like there's a character that's an Umbaran, and this is like, and there's like some history and some beef with another character that relates to the Umbaran arc from the Clone Wars. And we'll find out the ways that the developers and the creatives behind this game have used the Clone Wars series as a jumping pad, as a launch point into more storytelling. And I think having two actors in D and Matt who were so essential to the Clone Wars series and its success, I think really helps link up all of these things and truly, make that era feel cohesive, even though it does sound like this game is going to be very different in tone, in appearance, in everything from the series itself.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a lot of nostalgia for this era. Like you, I'm not super like up on like what the gameplay for this game is actually going to be, and like if I'll even like enjoy it as a game, because like I'm not a huge gamer. But the setting of this looks really cool. The characters looked amazing. Obviously, the cast is amazing, and seeing some old favorites, and I just love the fact that like D. Baker and Matt Lanter in particular seem to be just standby, just like always game to play these characters whenever they pop up, which is great. And it creates like, because like I've recently started playing Battlefront 2, and like, hearing those voices, like, and you add James Arnold Taylor into that and whatever else, like hearing those voices in another thing that's like a game scenario is crazy good. Like it's always just things. And then sometimes they'll say like the classic lines, but it's their character saying it. Like, it's always good. So this is going to add an extra layer of awesomeness and just kind of, real tangibleness to this, and connect it more to Clone Wars, like you're saying, that I think is really, really going to be fun.
Yeah, and they're tying it in with stuff that has come after Clone Wars as well. There's characters, the Jedi character is the same species as Two Tubes from Rogue One.
Tall Nath, I believe.
Yes, and it looks like we have a, oh my God, why am I blanking on Zeb's species?
God, why am I blanking on it?
Yeah, Ben's Connection Corner. How dare you?
Lasat from Lasan.
Yeah, looks like we've got a Lasat in here as well. So you're bringing together the universe in that way, which is always fun.
Vic Michaelis is playing a Togruta, appears.
Yeah.
There's a Mando in here. There's a command a tactical droid. Like I said, there's an Umbaran. There's another species that I seem to recognize, but I can't place them. Yeah, a lot of good stuff, and maybe some. I'm sure some, like maybe even some new species, new type of characters that we've never seen before, which is really cool.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with any other members of the cast beyond Dee and Matt. I've seen Vic Michaelis on shows like Game Changer and Make Some Noise, and they are very, 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 very funny, an excellent improv performer, and I hope that this character Runa Blask gets to like, I hope that Vic gets to like embody that character with the chaos that they bring to improv scenes and to their comedy, and so I'm really hoping to see that. I look forward to seeing that, seeing what that performance turns out to be, because that's one of those names where like when you see it on the cast list, you're like, I never in a million years would have picked you for Star Wars, but maybe this could be really, really great, and so I'm hopeful for that.
Right, and I should mention, I think they're having the Zero Company panel. Not tomorrow, but Saturday. I think
Saturday. Okay.
And I think Vic Michaelis and a bunch of other people of the cast are going to be there, so that should be really exciting.
I mean, that panel. If Vic Michaelis is on that panel will be a hell of a lot of fun, regardless of anything else that happens, regardless of any reveals you get. I suspect they will bring the chaos, as they always do.
Yeah, not wrong.
Let's see. Yeah, on when they'll take the stage on Saturday. Yeah, on Saturday, room BCF, 4 p.m. Pacific.
There you go.
7 o'clock.
I know, because Vic Michaelis literally posted an Instagram thing saying, see you on the 25th. I'm like, well, that must mean something.
Yeah, there you go. Lucasfilm's Kelsey Sharp, D. Bradley Baker, Jonathan Freeman, Rekha Sharma, and Vic Michaelis, along with host Michael Payton from IGN will host this. And Aaron Contreras, the narrative director from Bit Reactor. So kind of the Dave Filoni of the game, if you will. All right, so that's pretty cool. The only other bit of Comic-Con adjacent news, the Star Wars original trilogy novelizations. Heard of those? They have been out obviously for coming up on 50 years, but they never got unabridged audiobooks. Well, February 2nd, 2027, that all changes with Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, the audiobooks narrated by Mark Thompson. These are the same books. These are the ones that George Lucas, aka oh my God, why is my brain gone blank again? Alan Dean Foster. There you go. Alan Dean Foster actually wrote. These are the ones that were published in 77, 80, and 83 is what I'm getting at. They are not new adaptations. They're not going to like try and tie them in with all of the other stuff that's going on in Star Wars. They're still the flashpoints in time from 1977, 1980, and 1983.
And it's weird.
Empire novelization written by Donald F. Glutt, and the Return of the Jedi novelization written by James Caan, just to get that in there. Go ahead, Ben.
No, it was weird to me going back, because a few years ago, obviously, as the newer films were coming out, the sequel trilogy, Rogue One, all those, like I went through all of those audiobooks myself, and then I was like, oh, I should go back, and I should, because I hadn't really gone through the novelizations of the original 6 films. I should go do that. I did the prequels, and then started to go to the original trilogy, and they just didn't exist. And I was just like, what is this madness? The oldest movies do not have audiobooks. And I'm thankful that they're rectifying this, because I will absolutely, especially like Mark Thompson, come on, he's gonna nail it. This is gonna be really fun to have a modern, just any audiobook presentation of these books, because I've never read them. I've never read any of them. So I'm very curious. I actually have the junior novelization of Return of the Jedi. I picked up at a thrift store one day. I haven't read that yet either, but I'm getting around to it.
It's only 40 something years old. It's fine. 43 years old. I love, like, now I love going back to expanded universe from that era, from that early era where things weren't so locked in. And I do count the novelizations as expanded universe. I know they exist in like a gray area in canon and stuff, and I don't really care about that, but it to me it's an expansion of what was on film. And they are these they're these interesting little snapshots into what people were thinking about Star Wars at the time. And when you work through a trilogy like the original trilogy, you can see how that evolves with each book, and how, the way Alan Dean Foster would have written Star Wars is going to be kind of different from what James Caan does in Return of the Jedi, because there had been time and there'd been other stories. There were the Marvel comics and Brian Daley's Han Solo adventures and things like that just kind of, start to fill out and give people a sense of what the universe was. Whereas in, 77, when Foster was writing, you just he had nothing. He had nothing he was working from. I read Splinter of the Mind's Eye for the first time last year.
Wow.
Which is the Alan Dean Foster, the sequel novel that he wrote to Star Wars. The idea being that if A New Hope, or Star Wars as it was known then, wasn't a big enough hit to justify a theatrical sequel, they could use this novel as the basis for like a made-for-TV movie. And they assumed they wouldn't be able to get Harrison Ford back. So Han Solo's not mentioned in this book. He gets a fleeting vague reference to him and Chewie at one point, but he's not mentioned in it at all. Luke and Leia are definitely not brother and sister.
No.
Darth Vader is a powerful, imposing figure, but that's it. He doesn't have much in the way of connection to the heroes. And my favorite little detail, droid is spelled with an apostrophe before the first D, because clearly Foster was thinking it was a shortening of android.
Oh, okay. What?
Yeah, right? Like, you would never put that in a book now. That would never happen now. But
That's
back
so
then,
weird.
As a science fiction author, he thinks, well, robots, another word for robot is android. In this movie they keep calling them droids, that must just be like the short form for android, which I guess it is, but it has an apostrophe before the first D, which I was reading, I'm like, this is fascinating just to see that. Another detail, we're just, you know what, screw everything else, we're doing a Splinter of the Mind's Eye discussion now. Another thing that I found fascinating, yeah, I know this book is 48 years old. That's fine, we're talking about it. Another thing I found fascinating is we're so hyper focused on the Luke and Darth Vader connection now. So we always think about Luke and Anakin Skywalker in stories that are written now, and we tend to view a lot of the events of the original trilogy through that lens because of what happens in Empire, obviously. But I'm a firm believer that George didn't know that that's where he was going. He didn't know that, he didn't have that idea yet when he wrote Star Wars. I think that idea came to him during the writing of Empire Strikes Back, and he's since gone back and changed all of his stories to make it seem like he had that idea originally. And so in this book, there's like a rivalry between Luke and Vader, because Luke believes, as Obi-Wan told him, you know, Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father. Like he believes that. So there's that. But there's the like rivalry and the anger from Leia towards Vader is much stronger in this book than I think it is in a lot of contemporary Star Wars stories.
That is interesting.
That miss this point that in A New Hope, Leia is tortured by Darth Vader. Dr. Ball, that needle, he's not giving her an IV. And if it is an IV, it's not to, rejuvenate her system. It's a torture device. Vader says to Tarkin, our resistance to the mind probe is impressive, or whatever. Like they're torturing her for information. And so in Splinter of the Mind's Eye, Foster is building off of that. And so there's a lot more like anger from Leia towards Vader for that experience than I think we see in most modern Star Wars. Again, we tend to focus in on the familial connections between the Skywalkers, and yes, there is definitely stuff about Leia's anger towards Vader for Alderaan, which also factors into Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and things like that. But it's definitely second fiddle to the Luke Vader relationship. The Leia Vader relationship is definitely second fiddle to Luke Vader. And in Splinter, it's almost like they're equals. And if anything, Leia's kind of a little bit more first, a little bit more present, is a little bit more at the forefront, I think is the best way to put it, than Luke's in that book. And again, it's just a function of the time in which that book was written, because nobody knew what George was going to come up with for Empire at that point.
Well, yeah, and it is fascinating and also a little sad that, like, I think the movies, in particular the first three, struggled at times to figure out what to do with Leia.
After the first one,
for sure. And like, I think obviously, George, that was kind of a Hail Mary play in literally the third act. They're just like, well, let's just make her his sister, and let's just do this. And I think you can definitely attack a lot of the writing in Return of the Jedi, especially in regards to Leia, even though we all love it. We all love that movie. We love her. It's like, George, what are you doing here, man? And it's the whole thing with like her, ending up becoming his daughter. How does that affect everything? And how do you look at A New Hope differently after that? And like, how's this whole dynamic? I don't think, you have any even scenes in Empire Strikes Back where they are together. They are, they don't really have lines. But it would have been interesting to see another side of Leia, because I think we all because of how Leia was written and also how Carrie Fisher played Leia through all the films, we kind of interpreted that, and maybe it was a lot of us, I'm sure, was intentional too, of like Leia being the more stoic, hardened character. The fact that it's been parodied a million times and joked about a million times, but like Leia comforting Luke after Ben Kenobi dies. She literally just lost her whole planet and she's comforting him. And like, you understand why it's happening, but you kind of like, from a serious point of view, go like, well, she's the more grown up character. She's the more thing. She's got to keep it together. And then they take it further with, Leia after losing Han in Last Jedi, dealing with that and like having small moments where she's just kind of like trying to hold it together, but not really. And, it's very, I think the sequel trilogy does with that, I think is very interesting, but still tries to stay in the same ballpark of just like, yes, Leia is very, she's very hardened and, she's the hopeful one and blah, 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 blah. I think Leia is the most tortured character, both figuratively and literally throughout almost the entire saga. And, I think getting more from her would have been nice.
Mm-hmm. The stories of the original trilogy era, a lot of them have been really told in comics and other medium, but I do think, for as much as I want them to explore other eras, there is still so much potential for like an animated series or something like that, either during the original trilogy, like between Star Wars and Empire, or even post Return of the Jedi, like in the years afterwards, like in the years between, let's say, Return of the Jedi and The Mandalorian, for adventures with Luke, Han, and Leia, and Lando, and the characters of the original trilogy, Chewbacca, the droids, all of them. Like, I feel like there's still so much potential there for narrative, for interesting character arcs and narratives for them to be part of, that have nothing to do with necessarily setting up the future. We don't have to explain why they are the way that they are in The Force Awakens. But I do think there's a lot left on the table there if you want to go there, to tell good stories with those characters.
And if you think about it, it is bizarre and crazy that almost 50 years later, we haven't got that. We haven't got that show. Like, outside of, like, the closest we ever gotten to it was the holiday special, that little animated bit where it's, Luke going off and, it's Leia's there and Han's there and like they're having a little adventure. Like, we never got that, when so many other franchises have done this, taking their main characters. Ghostbusters, Star Trek, like literally all of these classic franchises have gone off and go, yeah, this thing was successful. Now let's go do an animated series with the main characters and give them more stories to fill in the gaps. We never got that. And obviously it's because, like, now we're looking back on the Clone Wars. George set the example of just like, no, we're not doing the original trilogy. We're going to start with the prequels. We're going to take these characters, develop them. And now all those characters have gotten that treatment. We've got all these crazy adventures with Anakin and Obi-Wan and Padme and all this kind of stuff. But now I'm just like, yeah, you guys love nostalgia. You love referencing the original trilogy in a lot of ways. Why not do a show? But, we've continued on and, now we're in Maul Shadow Lord territory, I don't know if we're definitely heading that direction, but we haven't got there yet. And I would be all over that, like, because it's so easy to create new stories, hire new voice actors, animate it all. People aren't going like, I don't really see him as Han Solo, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, nobody cares. It's just an animated show and people just get on board with it and it's fun. And I think that would be amazing. Hey, can that be my wish? Can that be my thing that I manifest? Original trilogy animated show? Come on, let's do it.
Yeah, it'd be great. Our buddy Din at F105 in the live chat says, I love that alleged quote unquote shadow animated show about Luke post Return of the Jedi, where he was more like a galactic Zorro, helping people out without being part of the system. Way back in, and this was like 2013. So this was like early Disney days when when we were still first starting to hear rumors about what new shows and things might be. There was this rumor that people at Lucasfilm did shoot down, although they were shooting down a lot of things in those days that weren't necessarily as untrue as they said they were. I don't know about the veracity of this one. They may well have been fake, but it was set post Return of the Jedi, and Luke was kind of like a vigilante that people whispered about, that he wasn't like an epic hero. There wasn't a Jedi Order in the way that the expanded universe set one up. Something that I didn't love about the expanded universe, the old expanded universe, the Legends verse, as it developed, was that as the prequels came out, they started to really shoehorn the post Return of the Jedi characters into fitting the mold of the prequel Jedi, because that's what Jedi were supposed to look like. And so you wound up with Luke having a Jedi Council that was a lot like the prequel Jedi Council, to the point where they were meeting on Coruscant and using the old Jedi Temple and all that stuff. And I didn't love that, because I always felt like Luke should have a different story. And I've resisted engaging with a lot of current canon stories that are set in between Jedi and Force Awakens that suggest that Luke is building a Jedi Order that is not the same as the prequel one, but more prequel-esque. A lot of the stuff that Charles Soule has written, and there's some reports about things that might be coming down the line in other books and potentially even other movies. And I'm like, I don't love that idea. I wanted to see Luke really try and break the mold, even if he failed. Like, you can still get to that point in the sequel trilogy where he failed, and still has to try again. And that idea of him being, the vigilante, kind of a bit Batman-like, I thought was kind of interesting, and I thought was really interesting. And I would rather that be the direction that they go with those stories. Although they seem to be laying down the groundwork for not full prequel era Jedi, but something that's a bit more familiar with Luke's Jedi Order, which it's okay. It's okay. But that's why it's one of the reasons I've resisted engaging with some of those stories.
Right, for sure.
All right. So that apparently was a discussion about the new audiobooks that are coming out of the original trilogy novelizations.
Love it.
Apparently that's what we were talking about there. Let's get into the Mandalorian and Grogu. This is our continuing discussion of this movie that came out. I kind of can't believe it's coming up on it's been 2 months. It's been 2 months actually at this point.
Yeah.
Since we first saw this movie, since you were here, Ben, since we were in the same place, you and I sitting there at the Canadian premiere, kicking back, drinking blue milk at the bar beforehand, and then going in. And I shouldn't say bar, I should say cantina, because it was literally a cantina.
Yeah, literally.
And then sitting there in IMAX watching this movie for the first time. And a big part of the IMAX experience is, of course, seeing these visuals on the biggest possible screen in a format that includes the aspect ratio that is different than what we usually see. So Ben, I'm gonna toss this over to you. You have been so good at coming up with these discussion topics, so I want to let you go first.
I don't know about that.
I think you've been good. So I want to let you go first and talk about your sort of overall feeling on the visuals of this movie.
Okay, I do want to preface this by saying that given the way things are going, I really didn't intend this for things. I just kind of pulled this little discussion topic out of a hat here. But I feel like this might be one of our last, if not the last, like big overall discussion topics we have on this movie. Because the fact that, San Diego Comic-Con is going on right now. Rebel Scum is coming up very soon. Ninth Jedi is releasing very soon. We've got video games. It feels like we're turning the page on Mandalorian and Grogu, and that makes me a little sad. I mean, the movie is out on digital as of now. It'll be out on Blu-ray and everything very soon. People will be watching it at home, and they'll be talking about it more, hopefully. I am planning to talk about this movie ad nauseum until I die. I'm gonna be like, so guys, remember that scene where Din and Embo are fighting? It's pretty cool. And they're like, yes, Grandpa, yes. Fine, just let's get you to bed. Let's get you to bed. Stop hearing about that movie that came out 100 years ago. Nobody cares anymore. But all my point in here is saying is that, whether this is the end or not, I think this is a good bookend to leave on, because my hot take about this movie is the fact that I think it might be one of the best looking Star Wars films we've ever gotten.
Interesting.
The production design, the visuals, the amount of stuff that they did in this movie, from the motion capture stuff to the puppets to the giant, but actually not giant, stop motion puppets of those droids. They really used all the tools in the toolbox in this movie. And it looks freaking great in a lot of things. And I don't say that lightly, because I think there's a threshold for Star Wars. I think every Star Wars film looks great. They're all, that's usually the substandard. Like Star Wars films, who knows about the writing, who knows about the acting, but it's going to look great. And ultimately, but I think The Mandalorian Grogu kind of broke through for me a little bit more into the, what I would consider the upper echelons of, what I would consider the Hall of Fame of Star Wars films, like The Empire Strikes Back, The Last Jedi, Rogue One, films that really excelled at bringing something new and creative and brilliant and beautiful to the table. And I think this movie excels at that so much. I love seeing, everything from the puppet work with Grogu and the Inzellans to these, the snow environments and all these new things it brought to the table. And then, just like these beautiful new environments. They really did a wonderful job of like creating this new thing and making jump up, because we were talking about this going into the movie of how can they up the ante. The Mandalorian and Grogu, the Mandalorian in particular, the show looks so good most of the time. And was a show that literally looked like a movie. How could they do that? And I think they managed to really make it a cinematic experience, not just from the aspect ratio, but from the look and feel of the movie. And so I really do, like, I want to applaud them for just the visuals. Like, again, just as George has said before, watch it with the sound off. It's a beautiful movie. It really excels at that. So I'm gonna stop rambling. I'm gonna let you say something, but I want to get that off my chest, because I really just wanted to highlight this. And if we don't say anything more about it, that's fine. But it is a movie that I think it deserves its praise for its visuals.
Yeah, what's interesting about this movie is I think the way it incorporates all the different techniques to achieve a filmic image. And I think it's something that it's Jon Favreau really tapping into something that is very George. George, especially once you get to the prequels, he really loved to tinker with things in post. The whole Frexeter post, that kind of comes out of the prequels, where they were doing a lot of stuff on green screens. There was a lot of people standing in front of a big green wall talking to each other or swinging a laser sword, and we'll figure out the rest later. And this movie is kind of, in some ways, I think it's something that George would have dreamt of, because there's not a lot of cast, right? We think about the human actors in this thing. You got Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder in the suit. You got Pedro on set for maybe a day. You have Sigourney Weaver. You have Johnny Coyne. And that's about it in terms of human faces. I guess director squadron is them. But everything else is either a puppet or CGI. Zeb is CGI. Yes, you had a guy on set. Yes, you have Steve Bloom. Same with Rada. You had some people on set. doing the fighting, which is the behind the scenes pictures of that is hilarious. Of just like some guy in the green in the mocap suit swinging around swords fighting Lateef Crowder in the Mando costume, and you're like, that turns into Rada. It does, because ILM is wizards. But you have a lot of CGI characters. You can finesse their performance the same way you do an animated character right up until the end, in a way that you can't with an actor, right? Like with an actor, you shoot the take a couple of different ways on set so that you have some options in the edit room. But if none of those work, you either have to pick the one that works best or is least bad, or you have to pay the actor to come back and do a round of reshoots and pay all the crew and pay for the studio space and all that stuff, which, it's Disney. They can absolutely afford to do it. But they're also cheap bastards and wouldn't and wouldn't want to pay for it if they don't have to. So, they have these opportunities. And then again, same thing with the puppets, right? The puppets, they can really finesse them on set. They really have perfected that ability. But if they don't work, well, the puppets are in storage at the Lucasfilm archives. Get them back out, put them in front of a green screen, and try again. And it's again still probably cheaper than paying Pedro Pascal to be on set or paying Sigourney Weaver to be on set again. Or you can just do a CGI version of it. The Anzellans and Grogu are all a wonderful mix of puppetry and CGI, and it all allowed them to really, really work on the visuals of this movie, so that because they could really take the time and finesse it in the way that you would an animated feature. And Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau both have a lot of experience with that. Filoni, obviously, years of Rebels, Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Resistance, all of it. And Favreau, yes, The Lion King and The Jungle Book are technically classified as live action, but they are animated movies. It's photoreal animation, but it's animation. And so those guys know what it takes to make something like this, and they are able to put those skills to good use on a movie like this, while also then going and shooting some scenes with Pedro and Johnny and Sigourney and a few others to flesh out the world and make it feel at home. I don't know where I would classify this one in terms of like my favorite Star Wars visual experiences. I don't know if it quite hits the same heights as Revenge of the Sith or The Last Jedi or Empire, like you said. But there are some really, really great moments. And I think it made great use, as I said, of all the different techniques to create something better. And we've got this shot up on the screen of Grogu and the Anzellans in their little like speeder. And it's from after Din gets taken by Embo. And I absolutely adore this shot. I don't know why. We saw it a gajillion times in the trailers. And when I saw it in the trailers, I didn't love it. I was just like, oh, okay. But something about it knowing the context, knowing what they're all going to do, knowing how important a moment this is in the movie, it really makes it hit home. And that ultimately is what the visuals are all about. Yes, they're like splendor to look at, but they're about telling the story. And I think Favs did a really, really, really good job throughout the vast majority of this movie of matching the visuals to the story in a way that makes all of it better.
Yeah, and you brought it up, like the mixture of techniques, because obviously this movie is leaning on half the cast are puppets in this movie. Like half the main cast are puppets.
It becomes a puppet show. It's a puppet show for
this whole section of the
minutes.
movie is like these are the stars of the movies now. These are a bunch of puppets. And I know it's not like crazy to have we've had Muppet movies before, whatever else, but like to have a serious, dramatic Star Wars film, not have a cute sidekick character that is a puppet. They have it actually, essentially, the star of the movie be a puppet is kind of crazy. You have to at least acknowledge that. But also, I love the fact that I'm looking at the shot and I'm like, are they puppets or are they CGI? I don't know. And I think there is some incredible CG work. Like I heard criticisms. I heard a lot of criticisms of people going like, Zeb doesn't look that great. Oh, Rhoda doesn't look that great in some shots. And I like watched the movie back like with those criticisms in mind, going like, oh, they must be right. And I'm like looking for the scenes and looking for things. And like, I really couldn't find them. Like I've only seen the movie 4 times. You know, give me a break if I'm wrong here, but I really don't see any glaring mistakes with the CG. I think it was really, really well done and integrated greatly with all the other things, with stop motion effects, with the puppets, with the live action footage, and melding all that together. And I think it, you know, it shouldn't be a compliment. It shouldn't be like a surprise that like, oh, they made photorealistic CGI. This is really cool. Like we're 20 years after, 30 years after plus after Jurassic Park and all these great movies that perfected this stuff. But we've all been to movies, especially lately, that don't always nail it. And I think this movie really did. I think it really does like meld it all together to the point where like, I don't know when Grogu CGI. I don't know when he's a puppet. I know like when he's climbing that pipe, when he's near Shikari and did like things and he's like climbing that pipe, it's very clear that is a puppet because it's like his hands aren't on the pipe. They're just like doing this and he's just like going up. And it's just like, oh, that's like, I'm not mad at that at all. That's just janky puppet stuff. I love that so much. Like you can't be mad at it. And that's where it's good. But there's also other things I'm like, well, a Grogu puppet couldn't do that. It has to be CG, but it looks like a puppet. What my brain is being fooled here. This is crazy.
Yeah. Do you remember? I think it was it was either on opening night or is at the Canadian advanced screening that we went to. When it got to the puppet show segment, like when Grogu and the Anzellans first arrive on Nal Hutta, there's a guy behind us who went, "Yo, what are we watching at this point?" Because it was so different. But I think it works really, really well. Like I think it's
the best part of the movie. And it's the strongest part of the movie.
Yeah, and I've said this before. Like I think one of the strengths of this movie is that it allows itself to be weird. Is that it goes back to the classic Star Wars thing of the Tin Man and a rolling garbage can are gonna walk around in the desert and argue with each other. Okay, we're gonna have a little frog man and these little monkey dudes, scramble, go on a little rescue mission through a big pipe on a jungle planet. Like that is just as weird, and they can barely talk to each other. None of them really speak. Like it's really like it's just strange, but fun. And like that is an important ingredient in Star Wars that I think sometimes we forget when we focus in on the hyper serious stuff. And I say that again as someone who thinks Andor is better than anything else.
Yeah. and also I agree with a lot of criticisms of this movie. Like I truly I have a balanced opinion. I'm not delusional. I'm not going to sit here and say like this is the best Star Wars movie ever. Like I'm not going to say that because I don't believe that. But I also have to push back on the idea that this movie is somehow cheap, that it's somehow lazy, that it's somehow, simple, that it's a safe bet. I don't think giving a good chunk of your movie to a bunch of puppets is necessarily a safe choice. This on paper sounds insane. Just the same way it sounded insane to have, let's get Frank Oz to voice a Muppet and he's going to train Mark Hamill in the ways of the Force in The Empire Strikes Back. That's crazy. Why would you do that? Well, it worked because the movie bought into it and the audience bought into it and the actors were on board for it. I think it's the same thing here. It's, and like even more so because it's a dude in a tin suit. He's not playing off anybody. Grogu is on his own. All these Anzellans are on their own, and they're carrying a movie, one of the biggest movies of the year. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's people, we've got to be able to hold two thoughts in our heads at the same time, and I think you can
What?
judge.
No.
You can there's a conversation to be had about this movie, and I think we've had it in context for what is the future of the Star Wars of the Star Wars franchise. I'm not gonna say galaxy, I'm gonna say franchise. There's a real world conversation, so when you factor in things like some of the movies that didn't happen, the direction of the franchise, things that are happening, the fact that something like Andor feels like it was like a once in a generation kind of thing, but it was also something that brought in a lot of people to Star Wars. Like there's a lot of conversations that could be had about where does this movie fit in that. But I think it's also extremely valid and worth doing to judge this movie on its own terms, by its own merits, and not think about, oh, what's its place in the franchise? Oh, what does this say about what the Filoni regime or Disney wants to do with Star Wars? I think it's fine just to look at it and go, did I like this movie? Did it move me on an emotional level? Did I have fun watching it? Was I entertained by it? And answered those questions. And for me, it's yes, yes, and yes. I was absolutely moved during all of those scenes with Grogu when he's saving Mando. And we talk about visuals. Those are, again, like, this is the puppet show segment of the movie. And it's not the funny puppet show segment. It's the like serious puppet show segment. And there's some really, really great shots and really great visuals. Everything from Grogu like cuddling up in like the crook of Din's elbow to sleep, to like little moments like that, to like the big grand IMAX shot that's on all the posters of Grogu meditating on the log. Like these like really like wonderful moments. Those really moved me. I'm entertained throughout this movie by the action, by the characters, by the funny moments, by the serious moments. And hell yeah, I enjoyed it. So it's absolutely fair to use this movie in context of a conversation about where the franchise is going and what it could be, should be, is, what you fear it might become, all that stuff. I think it's absolutely fair to include this in that conversation, but it's also very fair just to go, this is a movie. Did I like watching it? Was I moved by it? And that is actually, I think, that the merits on which we should judge movies and art in general is was I moved by it, and did I like it?
Yeah, I mean, and this is obviously an internet thing, not it's a human thing at its core, because we are all human and we're all weird. And when we get on the internet, we get even more weird, and we want to either, every movie that is ever made, it fits in either one or two categories. Either it's the best movie ever made that, is absolutely flawless, or it's an abomination to humanity and should be burned. Like, there is no in between. There's no in between. And like I was saying earlier, like I'm someone who's like, I love taking a second look at things. I have seen Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice at least twice, if not 3 times. And you can't go anywhere on the internet without finding someone with very strong opinions about that movie to this day, either positively or negatively. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I think it has some pretty darn good ideas, and at times is very entertaining. But also, it's a weird ass movie. Yes, Martha still does not work at all. Martha scene. But I love like thinking about it and going back to movies like that and being like, okay, everyone else is dismissing this. What is actually here? What can be actually discussed? And you apply to Star Wars, people will dismiss the sequel trilogy. They will dismiss the prequel trilogy. They will dismiss The Last Jedi or literally anything that's been made in the last 15 years just because they don't like a few things here and there. I think nuanced conversations are always way more fun. And it's like not coming at this from a bad attitude of just like, this is not Star Wars. No, it is. Let's talk about it. The Rise of Skywalker is Star Wars. It is part of this canon. It is part of this universe. Let's talk about it. Let's not come at this of like, well, I don't accept that. Well, too bad. It is. It's a movie. It's here. They're not going to remake it. It's there. Okay. Get over
now,
it.
Ben, I have a
almost.
petition. I have a petition that has been signed by all these people to remake The Last Jedi, and I'm going to do it next week. I swear. Give me money.
It's just, yeah. So like The Mandalorian and Grogu is here to stay. Let's talk about it. Let's continue to talk about it until we're all dead.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Let's talk about what are some of the other like visual moments in the movie that really stood out for you, Ben? Like, what's a sequence or a scene or even a single shot that really, when you think about this movie, you think, yeah, that.
Well, I think
besides the things we've already talked about,
right? Yeah, because I'm trying to like remember. Like I said, I haven't seen the movie in a hot minute, even though it was in my theater still playing like a couple of weeks ago, and I almost went, and I'm mad at myself for that, but I'm gonna get the Blu-ray. It's maybe not my favorite sequence, but it is like on the scale of ridiculousness and on the scale of like visual, this probably should not work, but it does. The whole pit fight is astounding. Like all those creatures, Rhoda in a pit, and he's sometimes, using his like fists to like propel himself forward, and he's rolling around, and then you have all of the Dejaric aliens coming in and just wrecking house, and it's just like this. I'm watching this. This is a Dejaric board. This is brilliant. This is amazing. This is crazy, and putting Mando in the middle of that is just, it's. Again, visually interesting, visually entertaining, and something that you'd never thought you'd see. And I think they did a brilliant job of like making that happen. And again, like blending all the elements, like you can imagine, most of the things in there are CGI, most everything. But there's no like jankiness to the visuals of being like, oh, I don't buy any of this. I don't buy that Mando, this live action character, is fighting this animated character. You just kind of all buy into it because it is very well done. I think that's something that it happens a lot in movies. I'm just like, I'm not buying this. It feels like these two characters aren't even in the same room together. They're having a conversation, and I don't buy it because I feel like they were both in green screen rooms on opposite sides of the world. And there's no emotion here versus this, which is like all these very inhuman characters bringing something to the table, which is very interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I'll throw in the sequences in the Hutt Palace, specifically the first sequence when Mando and Grogu first arrive, and just seeing how weird and creepy and dirty that place was, and just having all of these like almost like borderline gross out shots of the huts there, like
so bad, so gross.
Yeah, like long before we get to the puppet show sequence, that was the first time I went, okay, this movie is truly going to be as weird as I was hoping it was going to be from everything we had heard leading up to it. I was like, this is just strange. We haven't seen anything like this before. And this is like, it's maybe a little indulgent, but not in a bad way, right? Like it's the character, it's the opportunity that a movie allows, both in the freedom of the runtime, but also the larger budget of like, we don't have to spend every single dollar on exclusively on shots that move the plot forward. We can have stuff that is really just atmospheric and tonal and just gives you a sense of what the world is and what the scene is, right? Like in the show, you don't get a lot of just like superfluous shots that are just about letting you know what's going on in the world. Every shot has to, be moving the plot and the story forward in a very direct way. And so the challenge then for the production designers and the directors and the cinematographers is to do interesting stuff within that frame that tells you everything you need to know about the world and gives you a sense of what that is, while also keeping the focus on the two characters talking or the characters fighting or whatever it is. With a movie where you have the budget and you have the time to just go, let's just like point the camera over there for a second and see what's going on, you can do more of the like creepy, weird stuff that we see as they're walking through that hallway. And you know, this is something that Star Wars movies have always done. Like, you know, you step into the cantina, you know, you don't just follow Luke as he walks in, right? You step into the cantina and there's all of these B-roll shots of different aliens. Some of them were on set in Elstree. Some of them were shot months later. All of those amazing Rick Baker masks and costumes for all those aliens that he built. And that helps situate you, and by extension, Luke, because you're all on the journey with Luke in that world. So you understand this is a weird, wacky, but also dangerous place. And the same thing happens with all those just bizarre shots of Hutts living their lives as Din and Grogu make their way to the throne, the twins' throne room.
Yeah, and I was when I first watched the movie a couple of times, I was kind of hypercritical of those scenes, because I was like, okay, this movie's not that long, but it's still taking a long ways to like, couldn't you just skip this part? You know, couldn't you just got to the Shikari? Like, it feels like we're taking a long time to get where we're actually going, which is like finding Rhoda. But like you watch it back and you're like, oh, okay, like they're taking the time. This is table setting. They are establishing the look and feel of Nal Hutta, and you know, you get some, you know, Din talking about the Hutts and some maybe a little on the nose exposition, but still some stuff that's important. That's going to be way more important, better, and in the later, you know, scenes in regards to where you end up. So and makes that we're going to spend the last chunk of this movie on Nal Hutta. It's only natural to do a little bit of work to actually establish where we're going in the end. So I think it works very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like another shot. We had this moment up, or we had a version of this moment up earlier, right at the beginning, right? There's the regular aspect ratio and there's the IMAX aspect ratio. And there's the one shot when the chicken walker walks into frame where you actually see the letterbox disappear if you're watching it in IMAX, and the picture grows to fill the full frame, the full screen. I love it when they do this, when they're like intentional about the aspect ratio changing. There's sometimes where things are shot, certain aspects of a scene are shot in the IMAX ratio and others are in the regular ratio, and they cut back and forth. And ever since somebody pointed that out to me, I notice it every single time it happens. But when we watched the movie the first time, I actually didn't like fully clock that the picture was growing. But I just noticed that like suddenly I'm like, hey, that whole screen is full. Something I bet Favreau did that thing again that he did in the Mando episode that he directed, where the aspect ratio changed.
See what you did there.
And so when we saw the movie again, I was like waiting for that moment because I wanted to see it actually happen. I wanted to see the letterbox bars disappear and the picture grow to fill the full frame. And as that happened, someone else in our group, another person in the theater, someone else in our group who shall remain nameless, I heard them exclaim, "Oh, that's cool." As it happened. which was pretty great.
That's fun.
And it was pretty fun. So yeah, love that. Okay, fine. It's a gimmick, but it's fun, and it enhances the experience. And then you get the full IMAX ratio, which is like, there's so much more to it. There's a reason why Christopher Nolan shot his entire.
They actually used the full screen. It's not just black bars on top. But everyone thought, we're so used to it, but it's like, yeah, it's kind of weird that it's just black bars out there. Why not just use the whole screen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the IMAX.
Jon Favreau came along and said, "Hey, I'll do it for you. I'll do it. I'll be the first one to use the whole screen."
Yeah, I mean, the IMAX screen is different dimensions than a regular movie screen. So regular movie screen can't really do that. This is getting into like the Odyssey conversations that people have been having for the last few months, the good ones that are at least interesting about like movie tech and not rage bait culture war BS. But like that picture is so much taller, and it creates an imposing experience. It makes the movie feel bigger, and I think Favreau used it really, really effectively. And I'm seeing the Odyssey on Sunday. I still haven't seen it yet because I was waiting to see it in this format because opening weekend, surprise, surprise, was sold out. But like it sounds like Nolan uses it just as well, if not probably better than even Favs did. So yeah, but it's a great way to create or to augment the cinematic experience. Anything else you want to say, Ben? Anything else you want to say about this?
I think I've said too many things already, to be honest. So other than like, this movie looks pretty darn good. It looks good. It looks really good. And I can't wait to watch it again on my smaller screen. It's not going to look as good, but darn it if I won't do it a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's move on, and we'll get to our Ask the SWU segment. This is the segment where we kind of turn the show over to you, the listeners. You submit questions to us either via super chat in the live show or via the Discord in the 6 days or so between shows. So we will start this week. We got a super chat right off the bat from our buddy Joel Davis, who asks, given that Mando made $300 million more as a movie than it would have as season 4 of a streaming show, what could that mean for Filoni's Heir to the Empire movie, or culminating movie, still happening? So this is the question, right? Like, we obviously love this movie, and we've spent a lot of time talking about loving this movie. And I think most people that see this movie come away from it somewhere between like and love. They enjoy it. Obviously, there are people who didn't like it, and that's totally fair too. But if I put my Mara business hat on and pretend like I'm Disney, I put my business mouse ears on. And then I look at it and go, it didn't make enough money. It did between production costs and marketing costs. It didn't really, I don't think it broke even. So do I want to greenlit another movie that is essentially a glorified sequel to this? And not just this, but a couple of the Disney Plus shows. That's, it's our attempt as Star Wars to do kind of an Avengers style team up of Din Djarin, Grogu, Ahsoka Tano, Sabine Wren, Boba Fett, probably Jod Nanawood, and probably some other characters that we're not thinking of from those shows, to be the thing that finishes off these stories. And there has been some question raised that if this movie were not to be the success that Disney hoped, and I think it's safe to say that from a financial standpoint that is true, would that mean that they would cancel the Filoni movie that we assumed would be called Heir to the Empire and rework that idea into a streaming series, be it 6 episodes, 8 episodes, 12 episodes, something like that, and have the culminating event happen there? I have some thoughts on this, but Ben, I will turn it over to you first. What do you think the relative lack of success, but still, making money at the box office versus not making money as not making direct money as a streaming show means for the future of the Mandoverse on the big screen?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's an interesting question. It's a weird question now because of the fact that Mandalorian and Grogu was not a bomb like some people on the internet want to say it was, but it also was not the rip-roaring success that it could have been, and I'm sure the Disney wanted it to be. So that is going to affect things. But at the same time, you also have studios with plans like I've heard that simultaneously as this is happening, Masters of the Universe is a movie that came out recently. I think it really did bomb at the box office, like really did not do well at all. But apparently Amazon is like committed to giving that movie sequels because Jeff Bezos likes it. I don't know. Or maybe Jeff Bezos' son likes it. I don't know what's going on there. All I know is the box office for that movie does not matter. They're still going to move forward with more installments of Masters of the Universe, He-Man, whatever else is coming down the pipe, maybe, at least as it stands right now. So it matters, but it doesn't matter totally. My expectation is that we are not going to be getting the Mandalorian and Grogu 2 or the Mandalorian and Grogu Quantumania, whatever they want to call it. And we may not be getting the Heir to the Empire movie. I mean, it may be something else. My expectation is that we will see Din and Grogu again, but it will be in a movie of some type or another series that's happening. It feels to me like the Mandoverse, being that we haven't had any new announcements, being that Ahsoka Season 2 is coming, but that's kind of the last thing. It feels like things are winding down. It feels like we've passed the halfway point for this series of series. And that maybe the Mandalorian Grogu will be not a swan song, but a winding down period of these characters, at least for right now, from a monetary standpoint, from a business standpoint, are kind of, winding down. We've talked about it. I've heard people talk about the fact that, this movie may have hit a lot harder a few years ago.
Yeah, I believe
being that it's coming now, the Baby Yoda hype that was so huge a few years ago has dimmed a little bit. You still go out in public, you see people wearing Grogu shirts. People still love that character. And I think the enthusiasm that I've specifically seen about this movie online has been very encouraging. Like, I saw a post from, I can't remember. I won't out the publication, but they made a post about comparing the Mandalorian Grogu to Masters of the Universe and Supergirl and some of the other quote unquote bombs. And people lit them up. Let me tell you, people were not having it on social media. They were all over. How dare you even suggest that Mando was a bomb? We love this movie and we're sticking up for it. And I'm just like, hey, you go. Like, I'm glad that people are really sticking up for this and are being aggressively positive, because that doesn't always happen. But I don't think it was enough. I don't think it's going to be enough to get 5 more movies of this nature. I think Lucasfilm is moving on to new, bigger, and better things. I think Starfighter is going to be more or less the path forward of pushing the franchise past the Rise of Skywalker into a new era. And I think if Starfighter really hits, I think we're going to see more of that. And maybe that's what they're waiting for, is to see how good that movie does. But I think the Mandoverse, sadly, is probably on its way out right now. But also, we've got Celebration in the next, mere months away, really. That will kind of tell the tale in regards to like what announcements we see there and what is coming down the pipe next and what movies are going to, because I think we're getting back into the scenario where Lucasfilm is more focused on actually releasing more films, and streaming isn't as much of a priority as it was. And so that right there is going to limit the amount of Mandoverse stuff that we're going to be getting in the future.
Yeah, this is so. I've laid this out before. There was a huge gap between the end of Ahsoka Season 2 and the release of The Mandalorian and Grogu. Yes, Skeleton Crew was released in there, but it was not as direct with its ties to the Mandoverse as, say, Book of Boba or Ahsoka or The Mandalorian were. And so it feels kind of separate. there was this huge gap between those two stories of almost 3 years in which nothing in this ongoing story was released. And as a result, a lot of the momentum that was built from 2019 to 2023, 2023, kind of went away. And the momentum had hit a little bit of a speed wobble in 2023 because of because the Book of Boba Fett I don't think was as impactful, and I don't think season 3 of Mandalorian was as impactful as the first 2 seasons were. Ahsoka is a different beast that perhaps we will discuss another day. But regardless, there's this long gap, and it's a result of many factors. The Hollywood strikes, COVID, the fact that Disney decided to change where they were putting their energy. They went from all streaming all the time to no, we want theatrical stuff and we want to scale back on the streaming. And if you're still going to make streaming stuff, it can't cost infinite dollars anymore. It has to be a much more reasonable budget. And I think that ultimately hurt the progression and the momentum of the Mandoverse storyline to the point where I think the Mandoverse should probably be wrapping up around now. If we go back to Celebration 2023, when they announced the Dave Filoni movie, they're probably looking at that movie coming out this year or next year, having already released the New Jedi Order movie, and maybe having Jim Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie in some level of pre-production. Whereas both of those movies seem to be on the shelf, not happening. And the only survivor of Star Wars Celebration London is perhaps the Dave Filoni movie. Right. The Mandalorian and Grogu, maybe it didn't bomb, but it wasn't a success either. Like, I think we need to be honest about that if we're going to have this conversation.
Yeah.
I think for it to be even considered like a mild success, it would have need to have made another $100 million. And so if I put on my business Mickey ears and I sit there and I think, what do we do with this? This movie barely broke even, if it did break even. Do I trust this filmmaking team and these characters to be a draw at theaters again? Or do I want to look at the potential of just moving it back to streaming because that's where they were most successful? And I think, again, if I'm Josh D'Amaro or whoever, I actually put a pin in this conversation. And I say, we will decide after we see the response to Ahsoka season 2. Because Ahsoka season 2 is being shot a lot more like Andor, which was shot a lot more like a movie than the first season of Ahsoka or the first few seasons of The Mandalorian. They're shooting it in London instead of California. They're using more sets and backlots instead of the volume, although I'm sure there's still going to be plenty of volume in it. And the storyline of it sounds like it's supposed to be like a big epic war between the New Republic and Grand Admiral Thrawn's Imperial Remnant. And if I'm Disney and I look at that and it hits my viewership metrics that I want it to do, then I go, Dave, we obviously we like you. We've put you in as co-president of Lucasfilm, chief creative officer. We obviously trust your vision, but we think this story that you and John and everybody else has been telling for all these years is best suited to the silver screen, or not to the silver screen, to the small screen, to streaming. So we want you to rework Heir to the Empire into the ultimate 4 or 6 part event. We will give you a budget that is, comparable to season 1 of Andor, and go make it epic and end your story the way you want to end it, in the place where it all began, on streaming. And I think that if I'm Filoni, I think that's a pretty enticing idea, even if I was hoping to make a movie. And so I think the movie it's not maybe not in jeopardy, but it's and maybe it's on ice. Like maybe like we're wondering if I don't know if it will happen. If Ahsoka season 2 tanks, if it doesn't work, if their viewership isn't there, the audience doesn't respond to it, then I think maybe you revisit the cinematic conversation, but you may also have to revisit you may have to have a harder conversation, which is maybe we just leave it alone. Maybe we just drop it. Like I like, nobody wants to have that conversation, but that might have to be on the table, especially if you're putting your eggs and your energy into the Starfighter and then Simon Kinberg basket. If that is what we see as the future, then that's where we should be putting our attention and our energy. And this thing that started so strong in the Mandoverse and then hit every roadblock imaginable, from a global pandemic to these historic Hollywood strikes to just a complete reimagining of the business model under which it was conceived in the first place. All of that conspired to take something that was building and just stop it. And the world moved on without it. And the model that it was following, the Marvel model, I know Doomsday sold a hell of a lot of tickets and is going to be a big hit, as will Spider-Man. But Marvel movies aren't a shoo-in to be successes anymore either.
Nope.
And
even when they're good.
And again, and Marvel got caught in a lot of the same traps that Star Wars did, right down to the fact that they were building up something around an actor and then they had to get rid of that actor for very, very different reasons. Let's be 100% clear. They're not the same situation as all, but Rangers of the New Republic and the Kang Dynasty are both victims of the fact that we had this idea around this actor and then we couldn't use that actor anymore. Again, very, very, very different reasons. I'm not saying they are the same. So it's just the world has changed. Audience tastes have changed. People maybe aren't. Iman Vellani, the girl who plays Kamala Khan,
right?
She said, she had a great quote recently, which is Gen Z still loves superhero movies, but Gen Z doesn't feel they have to show up for every single one. Millennials, Gen X, for those of us who love these genres, it wasn't a guarantee to have even one superhero movie in the theaters. And when you go back further and further, like by the time you and I were growing up, there was like one a year. There was at least one a year, maybe two. But you go back before that, it was not a guarantee to have even one. And so if you like this genre, you were showing up for it, even if it was just an okay movie. And I think we're honest with ourselves about a lot of the multiverse saga. There's a lot of just okay movies in there, but they were doing something that hadn't been done before, this interconnected universe. And the movies were good enough that it was scratching that itch. And we were seeing something we hadn't seen before that we wanted to see as fans of superheroes, comic books, science fiction, fantasy, like that whole, what they call genre entertainment. Because they were doing that, we felt like, we should show up for this because we were interested in this. But that's been done. Gen Z is like, we can watch all of that on streaming or on Blu-ray or illegally downloading it. Like, that's already been done. We don't need you to do that again. You need to show us something we haven't seen before. And I think that applies obviously to Marvel. It applies to DC. It applies to Star Wars. It applies to Doctor Who. It applies to Star Trek. All of these franchises that flourished from, let's say, 2000 to 2020, had a great 20 years there, are all kind of in a weird place where we're all sort of like, is this working? Are people interested in this anymore? And I think people are, but you got to show them something new. It can't be the same thing over and over and over again. It can't, and it can't go back to the same tricks. And I love the idea of Heir to the Empire, and I love the idea of an interconnected universe. But I'm sorry, after season 2 of Mandalorian, the stories have not been good enough. They have not. There are great moments within the stories. Book of Boba Fett, episode 2, Ahsoka, episode 5, Mando season 3, episode 3, maybe. Like there are great moments. That 20 minutes of Grogu in the Mandalorian and Grogu, there's great moments. But as a whole, the stories have not been good enough. They have not. And so what momentum was being built through seasons 1 and 2 of Mandalorian, because the stories were really great, has fallen off, in addition to all of the other external factors that contributed to that nobody could control. I mean, Bob Iger could have controlled. They could have ended the strikes a lot sooner if they wanted to.
For sure.
But a lot of other things like that. So I think, as much as I hate to say it, like the window for the Mandoverse, the window for Heir to the Empire might have passed us by. And it's partially a result of quality and partially a result of external forces. But I genuinely, I think it all hinges on Ahsoka season 2, both in terms of how successful that is in terms of audience, but also does that show succeed in winning over those who are skeptical about it?
Okay. You got me thinking here. And I'm gonna say something that might be controversial. It might upset some people. It might sound mean, but I feel I need to say it. And I feel I can say it because I have talked ad nauseum about how much I genuinely love the Mandalorian Grogu. And I couldn't say that immediately after I saw it the first time. I think it really took a few times for me to settle into what this movie is, as opposed to what I wanted it to be or what it could have been. But all in all, I feel like The Mandalorian and Grogu is a movie that illustrates a problem that I noticed in season 3, that I noticed in season 3 of The Mandalorian. Something that immediately when Bo-Katan got the Darksaber back from Din, and I realized as just a watcher of just like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. I see that unfortunately, the characters of Din and Grogu are kind of frozen in carbonite. They are kind of just there, and there is a hesitation from Jon Favreau in particular, being the writer of this, to move them into new and interesting places. And I like what we got in The Mandalorian Grogu. I really do. And the subtext is there. There is stuff there. To say that there's no development, that there's no pushing the envelope in The Mandalorian Grogu would be a lie. But it's also, as we're saying, two things can be true at the same time. It didn't go far enough in a lot of ways to push the story forward and push the characters forward and to make The Mandalorian Grogu a more satisfying film, which I think honestly led to it being not the box office smash hit that it could have been. And I will say this. If Jon Favreau or whoever ends up being in charge, because we don't know, if it could be, so maybe somebody else comes in and takes over and does this. But if they are not willing, Disney, Lucasfilm, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, anybody that is in charge of this is not willing to, in the next installment, if it happens, if they are not willing to make some drastic moves with these characters and do something really unique and interesting and not just be, as you said, just okay. Just put something out that's just okay. I don't want to see a sequel to The Mandalorian Grogu. I don't want to see these characters keep going if something down the line is not going to be interesting and unique and thought-provoking and things and more thought-provoking than this. Because I'm not saying that The Mandalorian Grogu is bad. It's just not good enough for what I think. And I think that's something that I've wrestled with. I'm just like coming off the high of Andor, coming off the high of Star Wars could be even better than I thought it could be. Star Wars was already the best thing I'd ever seen, but somehow Andor exceeded my expectations, and Star Wars was even bigger and better and more extraordinary than I ever thought it could be. Coming off of that to The Mandalorian and Grogu, which all in all is fine. And I don't mean fine in a bad way. I really do mean it's fine.
It's like a fine wine.
It is perfectly acceptable. But I really want Star Wars to be extraordinary. I want it to excel. I think Star Wars would not be what it is today if George Lucas had just set out to make a fine movie in 1976 or 5 when he started writing it. He set out to make something extraordinary, and Star Wars needs to be that. It needs to have those higher echelon expectations and hopes. And if you're not going to do that, maybe The Mandalorian and Grogu needs to be the last time we see these characters. Maybe just let them stay as they are and let's move on to something else.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, it's an interesting question. If we start thinking about like the story of the next saga of the next movie, if it is this if we do get Heir to the Empire, if it does get made, I mean, I do think Din Djarin is being set up to be the sacrificial lamb. Like, he was never going to die in this movie, in Mandalorian and Grogu, but like they've walked him up to that edge where like his story is basically complete, and so he can go into an Heir to the Empire, be it a show, be it a movie, be it whatever, and be the one who heroically sacrifices himself, and then Grogu takes on his legacy and advances on into the next adventure. And Pedro Pascal, he comes back for one scene in the movie, right? Like, it's not like he's really locked into this character. I think if you said to him, Pedro, we're going to do a great ending to this character, he'd be like, yeah, sounds good. I just, came and recorded my lines every 2 years anyways. So I think, like, I agree with you that I don't think we're going to get another just sort of like standard Din and Grogu adventure like this, which is a reason to, I think, cherish this movie, because it's probably the last time. And I think the next time we see them in this climactic event is likely, it feels like Din Djarin is going to play that Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo role, and be killed off. But just to bring in some other voices in this, Joel dropped another super chat saying, controversial take. What if Star Wars is okay not winning over the next generation and just letting Star Wars fade quietly into the night? And Star Raptor chimes in as well and says, I wonder if Star Wars should stop going after the Gen Z and Gen Alpha and double down on appeasing Gen X, baby boomers, and millennials. In that case, if that's what we're doing, this is my this will be my hot take. In that case, if that's what we're doing, then we should have just left it at 6 movies in the Clone Wars. Yeah. If the goal is to let it end and to stop making something that appeals to the next generation, then we shouldn't have even bothered with what we've done since then. The great thing about Star Wars is that I believe this in my core. I believe this is part of the DNA of the franchise. It's why you go from the prequels to the originals, and why you get the varying reactions to those movies, is that it needs to make something that does appeal to that next generation. And it needs to give that next generation, their version of the story, their part of the story to latch onto and see themselves in, and then grow to appreciate the other parts. And also, for all the old people who only like the old stuff, to someday have their eyes opened to what else is out there, right? Like, how many people did we hear say, I hate the prequels, I hate the prequels. Oh, I watched them with my kids and I saw them through a different eyes and suddenly I like them. And actually they're not so bad and they're pretty good, actually. Like, that's a huge part of the Star Wars experience. And if Star Wars just starts playing the hits and appeasing the older audience, the existing audience, I mean, I won't say older, I'll just say existing audience, then it's gonna die as a franchise. Then we're in the last 10 years. But like that's it. Like that's where we're going. And you know, that doesn't mean dumb it down. That doesn't mean make it for kids. Doesn't mean make Young Jedi Adventures. Doesn't make the Adventures of Jar Jar Binks. It means make things like Andor. And yeah, Andor is maybe not for Gen Alpha yet. But certainly Gen Z can enjoy Andor, and it speaks to a reality that they're experiencing, and also it's just great storytelling. And that's the thing. Like, we talk about, oh, we got to appeal to this generation. Oh, you got to appeal to that generation. Actually, you just got to tell a really good story, and people will show up. And that's like, again, like, you want to this whole debate that's been happening this year between, like, you have these small indie horror movies like Backrooms and Obsession that are exploding at the box office, while traditional stalwarts like Star Wars and DC and the Minions are failing. Yeah. It's because audiences are like, yeah, show me something new. Show me something new and exciting. I'm not interested in just seeing another just okay thing that I've seen before. And all those three movies, Mando, Grogu, Supergirl, and Minions, to an extent, are playing to a pre-existing audience and saying, you should come and see this because, it's got this connection, it's got that connection, it's got all this stuff. People want new and exciting and fresh and interesting ideas, and that's what you got to give them. And that's why Andor, again, everything doesn't have to be Andor in the sense that Star Wars isn't going to become a political drama, spy espionage franchise, but like Tony Gilroy and his team come in and go, we're going to try something really different. And that's the show that people that has caught people's attention, old and young, new audiences and existing audiences. And, there were some focus groups done before Mando Grogu came out where they asked Gen Z, like, are you interested in the Mandalorian and Grogu? And for the most part, the people who responded said, not really. I'd be more interested if they were doing something that was more like Andor, because I really liked Andor. So like, I just think that, yes, there is room for these existing franchises to evolve and grow and become something different. And that's part of what makes Star Wars so great, is that it's done that before. And I truly, truly, truly believe it could do it again. And I think it was on its way to doing it again with The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. And then it chickened out with The Rise of Skywalker and tried to appeal to that pre-existing audience. And honestly, as soon as you went with a young Han Solo movie and then The Rise of Skywalker, that was when things started to fall off. And you can blame Last Jedi as well, but that movie was trying to do something and was trying to find that thing that appeals to the next generation. And Mando and Grogu originally felt really, really fresh in The Mandalorian. Like that felt like it was really, really fresh and exciting. And then once it got, like, I really wanted Mandalorian to go into like the Darksaber stuff and the restoration of Mandalore and all of that stuff. But once it got into that stuff, that's when the show kind of took a turn.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe as fans, we don't know what we want, or we don't know what's best. Maybe I think George actually said something like that this week.
Pretty much.
Maybe we should be looking ahead. We should be not thinking, oh my God, I want to see, this thing that I've heard about before. I want to see something I haven't even thought of. And again, that's Andor. Again, it doesn't have to be Andor. It doesn't have to be that genre. It doesn't have to be that adult. It can be silly and goofy. It can be for fun for kids. It can be swashbuckling adventure. It can be anything, but it has to present something that feels fresh and doesn't feel like you're just pleading with your pre-existing audience to show up.
Yeah, and that you bring up Andor, like, that was the criticism. That was the first criticism that Andor got when it was first announced, was we didn't ask for this. Why are they doing a Cassian Andor show? Nobody asked for this. Nobody wants this. Blah blah blah. And that was the thing, because we found out about Andor long before, and at that point it wasn't even Andor. It was something else. It was they were trying to figure out what the show was. I don't even know if Tony Gilroy was even in the picture at that point, but that was the joke. And it's looked back on as like this ridiculous time in fandom where people were just like, we don't know what we want, really truly, we don't. And I think and I think George hit on that recently. There, he said some other stuff that we won't get into right now because it'll be another 2 hours. But it is this juxtaposition of just like giving people what they want, but they don't know that they want it. And like, who would have thought we would get Andor? And now we're looking at like, what is the next Andor? What is the next show we're all going to be raving about? We're going to be saying this rivals Andor. This actually surpasses Andor. What is that show going to be? When are we going to get it? Because I do believe that the best is still yet to come. But Star Wars has to evolve. And I think it is interesting when people talk about franchises ending, franchises that, this is going to fade away. I'm sorry, but that goes against the nature of Hollywood, the nature of this business. Nothing is ever going away, ever. There's things they will always find a way to bring. If a franchise folds, goes under, doesn't do well, they will always find a way to bring it back, to reboot it, to refurbish it, whatever else. Yeah, I know. Robert Zemeckis says he doesn't want to do a Back to the Future reboot, but guess what? He's not going to be around forever. And whoever owns the rights, they're going to pry it out of his cold, dead hands one day, and we're going to get a reboot of those movies. It's going to happen. And you just have to hope that the people in charge understand what they're doing and also want to push it in, and not just do like, oh, this thing people like, let's do it again, which is a lot of what a lot of reboots do and make that mistake. It's pushing things forward, doing something different, doing something unique. And there's a lot of, as much as we've, bellyache about reboots and sequels and whatever else is endless supply, there are a lot of good ones. Andor is a good one. It's a spin-off show. That sounds like a spin-off about a spin-off about a minor character in this movie. That sounds like a stupid idea, but it's great. And it takes, a good idea and some good storytellers to come down and just make a good story, make a good thing, do it and stick to it and be willing to evolve. Star Wars has to evolve. It evolved into what it is now, and it will continue to evolve if it is to survive. And I think, weirdly, I think what we've gotten in the past 10 years has done a pretty good job of that. I think you can argue with the output. You can argue that some of it hasn't been as good as it could have been, but like, they've tried to hit everything. They tried to do everything from The Acolyte to Andor to Skeleton Crew to all this stuff, the movies. It's tried to reach different audiences. Not everyone, all of it has hit all the audiences, but it's tried to be different things. It's tried to be unique things and push Star Wars to places it's never been before. I think if they keep doing that, Star Wars will be here in another 50 years.
Yeah. All right. This is the last thing we're gonna do before we're running out of time here. So stop submitting super chats. Stop giving us money, damn it. No, honestly, keep submitting them. Just know they're getting saved for next week. That's the thing at this point. Joel says, I fundamentally disagree with Dom because at this year alone, all the films that have made $1 billion have all been millennial franchises like Mario. So that's an interesting point. And I've seen in the chat there's been conversation about the nostalgia. And nostalgia is an interesting part of this because nostalgia does fuel a lot of things at the box office, and it does fuel a lot of successes. What I think, where my response to this is this: millennial nostalgia is still a thing. It still brings in big bucks at the box office, because millennials are still the ones with the buying power. Until a few years ago, the thing that had all the power at the box office was Gen X nostalgia. And before that, you had baby boomer nostalgia. And now the things that are plays for Gen X nostalgia are the things that are missing. Mando Grogu and Star Wars is kind of, when it plays it safe, is a ploy for Gen X nostalgia. Masters of the Universe, which Ben brought up earlier, tanks at the box office because it's relying on people that watched a cartoon in the 80s. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's a fine movie. Wasn't as successful. I don't even think it was as successful as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
No.
These movies, because that nostalgia, the things that people have nostalgia for, or the people that have nostalgia for it, that aren't showing up for the movies anymore, not in the ways that they used to. In part because they've had the nostalgia itch scratched very well over the last few years by a lot of things, and I think that's good. That's good for them, absolutely. But the Star Wars version of the millennial version of that is now what's playing out these days. And Doomsday is like the ultimate ploy at that, with the Fox X-Men and bringing back, like, it's the fact that the movie, which was all supposed to be about the next generation, is going to be led by Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, and Chris Evans. Like, come on, that's just like, that's Avengers from 2012. But that's, again, it's appealing to the millennial nostalgia. My thing with this, like, making things for the future is, okay, maybe they aren't going to like cash in the way the nostalgia plays do. Some of the nostalgia plays, not all of them, let's be clear. But what are people going to be nostalgic for in the future if they don't have things that are good now? And so you have to make the good things now so you can make $1 billion in the future with the new things. And that's where, Toy Story and Avengers and that stuff are going to make more money at the box office than Backrooms. Sure, of course, duh. But when you make things that are good now, that people respond to now, when they're, with this Gen Z, when they're young millennials, and Gen Alpha coming up, they're going to then be nostalgic for that. And in 10, 12, 15, 20 years, you're going to be able to put out, I don't know if there's a Backrooms cinematic universe. I have not seen the movie. It's too scary for me. But you're going to be able to come back to those things, make a nostalgia play, and make your $1 billion. Like, that's where this is ultimately, that's what you're doing, is you have to invest in the future. And my thing with, what if we just let Star Wars, appeal to the existing audience? Okay, that's fine. It'll continue plugging along. But with no investment in the future, with no investment in, okay, yeah, maybe this isn't the most popular version of the Star Wars galaxy, but people like it. It's bringing in new audiences like Rey and Finn did. So we should see that story through to its end, because people that we need to like it in the future will like it. So that then when we do the nostalgia play in 10, 15 years, they'll show up for it. And that's where we're at. That's what we're getting. And I will say, Joel just mentioned this, prequel era stuff right now is millennial nostalgia. Absolutely. And personally, I'm getting sick of it. Like, you need a little bit more. You need a little bit more than just that for me now. Like, I need The Obi-Wan Kenobi show, that was your big prequel nostalgia thing. Okay. What's next? Like, give us something new to latch onto, give us something new to be nostalgic about in the future. And that's where that's where we need to go. And if Star Wars doesn't do it, if Marvel doesn't do it, if Star Trek doesn't do it, if these pre-existing franchises that have reinvented themselves time and time again to do exactly this, if they don't figure out a way to do it, something new will come in and take its place. And you know what? Maybe that's a good thing too. Maybe we need both. But
we can do both.
Yeah, we're out of time. We are out of time, folks. So thank you very much for listening, but we are going to wrap things up for this week. Fun, different discussion at the end there. I liked it. We started off with detours. In a way, we started off by talking about like a thing that we're nostalgic about in a good way without having seen. We're nostalgic about with having seen, and ending on the debate of like what is the future of the franchise, which again is what we were saying. You got to be able to say I like this, but also is it good? Like, those are two separate conversations. I like this, but what does it mean for the future of the franchise is a better way of saying it, instead of do I like this or is it good? If you like it, it's good. I'm a very strong believer in that. I don't like when people say this, and I'm sure I've said this at some point. Oh, I liked it, but objectively it's terrible. I'm like, if you liked it, then it's good in some way.
The need to apologize for just liking something because you're afraid of being cringe or whatever. It's just like, guys, please just like something. You can enjoy something and not be sorry about it.
Exactly. So, Ben, anything you think? Thank you for co-hosting and hosting and coming up with those great topics as always. Anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, so there is a new episode of CultureCast where, ironically, I do this. Adjacent topic to this. I'm just like, make movies good. Make movies good. So definitely check that out over on the CultureSlate YouTube channel and all over the place at CultureSlate on all the socials to find these. And then we'll have a new episode coming up next week. And also, it should be of noted, I won't be here next week, and I won't be here probably next week either. So, I'm gonna be gone for a little bit. But I'll definitely check on the Star Wars Underworld socials at the SWU to find out what I'm up to, because there is stuff happening, and I'll try to keep you guys along for the ride. And who knows, maybe I'll pop up eventually, but on the show. But in the meantime, I don't know when I'm going to see you guys again. I'm really happy. No, it's okay. It's fine.
There you go. Well, we will miss you here, Ben, but we'll continue plugging along. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. We hope you join us then. I'll quickly promote my Substack. I haven't posted yet. I posted yet this week because I've been busy and tired and don't have all the
shame.
But eventually I will post a review of House of the Dragon episode 5, season 3, episode 5, sooner rather than later, because episode 6 is right around the corner. But do subscribe to that, DominicGJones.substack.com. But again, that's it. So again, subscribe. Make sure you don't miss an episode. Become a channel member if you'd like to. If you like the show and want to support us, review us on your favorite podcast apps. And make sure you join the Discord to keep the conversation going and find out where the heck Ben is going to be. Make sure you're also following us on social media and check out the other programming on the Star Wars Underworld Network, like the Raeside, Ion Cannon, the Tractor Beam, and Tales from Beyond the Galaxy. Okay, that is truly it for real this time. We are out of here. We'll see you next week. For Chris, who isn't here, for Hannah, who isn't here, and for Ben, who is here, my name is Dominic, and may the Force be with you. It's a wrap.